Welcome to a special edition of the Daily Deuce. I am John Webster, and I am so excited today. First interview we've done in a little while, and guess who we have here today? Got my dear friend here today, Anthony JoJo Hunter. JoJo, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. It's my pleasure.
Man, I'm so glad to get you on the show. It's been my fault I haven't had you on, so I want to say up front right now before you bomb me out, it's my fault I haven't had you on the show. And we can keep on moving, right?
Yeah, we can.
Hey, look, I understand you had a birthday this week, man. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I wish myself many more, but at this point, I've had a good time, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow. No further than that.
You're going to be here a lot longer, my friend. You're going to have some great days. Hey, look, man. One of the things that I do when I have interviews, I always ask some people what they think of a person when I say their name.
Right.
So I ask people when I say JoJo Hunter, what comes to mind? So I asked Clyde the Glide Austin from Richmond, Virginia, Maggie Walker, and NC State what he thought of JoJo Hunter. When I say JoJo Hunter, said JoJo was way before his time, and he was instant offense. Incredible ball player. Asked Jesse Harrison, Theodore Roosevelt, and what is it, UDC player.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He said JoJo scored 47 on us one time. Unbelievable player. Unbelievable player. And he says, learned a lot from you and how and the shooting that he has now.
Okay.
Bruce McCoy, High Point High School in Coastal Carolina. JoJo Hunter was everything. One of the greatest shooters ever. Was a pro in high school. If given the right opportunity, would have been a legend in the NBA.
Okay.
Who else we got here? Here's another one. Kenny Matthews.
Wow.
All-American, Dunbar High School, and NC State. Hell of an athlete is what Kenny said. Great shooter, very talented, ahead of his time. And then I got one last one. I had to reach one more time. I just had to reach one more time. And I found this guy named Charles Hawkeye Whitney. And he said, JoJo is how we came up. You had to be prepared to battle each and every time. Had to bring your A game. You brought your A game every night, is what Hawkeye Whitney said. You're one of the best. You're a DC legend. You opened the doors for others, and you were a leader on all the teams you played on. And you changed things for Mackin. And in Hawkeye Whitney's humble opinion, when you mention Mackin High School, the person you think of first and foremost is JoJo Hunter. Wow. So that's some of the things I found. Then I found one other thing. I went back and I found an article because Hawkeye was telling me to ask you about a game that was a triple overtime game, and I know he mentioned it because they won and you had he had to mention that. But the biggest thing was I went back and read this article, and they said it was a matchup for the ages. Hawkeye had 41, you put up 38, and something you told me long time ago, because you had told me about this game too, even before Hawkeye did. And it's in the article. Coach Morgan Wooten came up to you after the game and congratulated you and said you're simply one of the best, man. And hey, what can you say? What can you say? Absolutely one of the best. But that's some of the things that I found. Let me also give you for our viewers that are watching today, highlights of JoJo's career. All-Met player, 74, 75, and 76. Averaged 38 points a game in senior season at Mackin. I think I may have scored 38 points my whole career in high school. You did it in one season. But anyway, first player to be asked to go directly to the pros from high school. First guard to be drafted straight out of high school by the Philadelphia 76ers. First high school player to be invited to the Olympic trials. This is an unbelievable run right here, and I still can't wrap my head around this one. Scored 57 points in a high school game against McNamara High School. You scored 57 points. By yourself, you scored 57 points. And McNamara as a team scored 52.
They had an off night.
That's all we'll say, and we'll move on to the next highlight. That's what we'll do.
All right.
1976 High School Player of the Year in Street and Smith's magazine. Played in the 76 Capital Classic. You attended Maryland, attended Maryland University. Played for the late, great Charles Lefty Drysdale. Transferred to Colorado University. You played for Coach Bill Blair. Selected to the All Big 8 Conference during the 1980-81 season. Honorable mention All-American in 80-81 AP and UPI. Played for the Milwaukee Bucks in 81. Played 5 years in the CBA. You played internationally in Chile, Brussels, Belgium, Israel, Philippines, Europe, and South America. And you also played 18 seasons in what was one of the greatest summer basketball leagues, not only in this area, in this country, the Urban Coalition. JoJo Hunter, that's just a few things we have here, and welcome to the Daily Deuce, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, you had an amazing career at Mackin High School. Tell us some of your fondest memories about Mackin, man.
In most sports, the guys who's the shooter or the scorer in most teams, just like the halfback and the quarterback and the wide receivers were the glorified positions. I think at Mackin, a lot of people don't give the other guys no credit because for me to average 38 or to have a game that I outscored the other team, the players that I played with, nobody was really selfish. I mean, on some nights when, I started slow, they still had the confidence that I was going to get on. And this guy, rest in peace, he don't get the publicity, but he got me the ball every night. His name is Jimmy Wright. Mm-hmm. And people focus on me, but he was the guy that was stealing the ball, running a fast break, and he always looked for me, as well as Theodore Spooler-Williams, Emmanuel Hardy. I mean, the list goes on and on. I played a role my freshman year. There's only 2 players in this area that played varsity in the 9th grade. The first one was Adrian Dantley. I was the second one. As a 9th grader playing with guys like Larry Heron, Keith Heron, who both went to Villanova, Duck Williams, Notre Dame, and then Utah. A guy that's not mentioned much, who was he was Michael Jordan in South America, David Rivas. I replaced him in a high school game. I had just played the junior high school game. I was downstairs taking a shower, and I used to practice with the varsity. So I played like one game as a freshman. I averaged like 30 a game, and the guys was like, man, he playing by himself, And I went, like the next week, I went to the JV. Mm-hmm. And then I played one game against the Mather, against Hawkeye and them, because he was behind Adrian and Kenny Carr, Vern Allen, Kenny Roy, and Billy Langlow. So they found Dave Rivas was too old for this particular game at St. John's. And the place was packed, not because of me. Everybody came to see Adrian and the Heron brothers. I mean, it was like a college game. I mean, people were outside. It was looking through the windows and everything to see Adrian. He was having a phenomenal year. And, we had some gifted players as well. Everybody gives the kudos to Keith and Duck. But Larry Heron was phenomenal. Guy 6'8", had the big hands, and he just had problems with Adrian. Adrian had problems with him, but he always had great players with him. Vern Allen was 6'9", and then he had Kenny Carr. There's one player that people had forgotten about, but he was a college power forward in high school. I mean, phenomenal player, who also went to NC State with Clyde DeGrod and Hawkeye and Kenny Matthews. So, just to name something about a team that was I was on. That was one of the highlights that I had players that never, you know, were jealous of me or didn't want to play with me on nights that I had good nights. So a lot of the points that I scored came really from my teammates. I just practiced on making the shots, and they, put me in good position.
When you went from freshman to JV to varsity, did you see much difference in the level of play, or it was pretty
Well,
smooth transition for you?
it's never a smooth transition because in junior high school, you play against maybe 200 guys, 200 people in the gym. That depends on what school I played at Langley. And then when you got to high school, it's 900 to 2,000 people, depending on the gym. And when you get to college, it's 18,000 people, which is, you know, that's at another level. The pressure of a mistake from college to you being in junior high school, that what the practice is for you to be able to handle that pressure and for you to be able to accept the role that you're playing with the team as well as what the coach wants. So yeah, it's big. I know the game at the Capitol Classic. I hurried up and got dressed, and I only seen that gym filled when Ellen Hayes and my good friend Phil Chenier was there. I used to come to the games with Eddie Myers, and the games were so big. I used to say, man, there's a lot of people here. But on that particular night, it was that night. So when I used to go out and peep at the fans and see how many people was coming in, a lot of butterflies came out. I couldn't wait to get out there, but the lights seemed a little brighter at that level of 18,000. And the first couple plays, you're nervous. And I used to look over on that first and second row. It was all coaches and people that was at that next level. Hubie Brown, the former agent of a lot of the NBA players, David Falk, James Brown, Glenn Harris. I remember one play, and then I'll turn it back over to you because there's a lot of stories. We did the Capitol Classic, and me and Darrell Griffith were the two high school runner-ups for the Player of the Year. Darrell had like a 45-inch vertical. Mine was 40, if it was 40. And it was a play right in front of Howard Garfinkel, who ran the five-star basketball camp, where Bobby Turner drove, and I went to block the shot. He bounced the ball back to Darrell, and I was ready to kind of block the shot, and he went up and put the ball behind his head. I thought I had a block, and he moved over and dunked it on the strings, wrapped up, and before I could hit the floor, I looked over at the bench, and Glenn Harris and James Brown was like, if they felt for me. And I tried the whole game to get Darrell back, and I got a breakaway, but it was nothing like that. I spoke to Darrell maybe 5 years ago. So I've always told him, I said, did you have to dunk on me like that? He started laughing. He said, yeah, but I couldn't stop you though, Joe. I said, yeah, but you had the highlight, basketball is a thing that you prepare. This is what I tell a lot of kids, that there's somebody someplace else that's working just as hard as you. Mm-hmm. And the pudding rise to the top. I think in our area, I would say Adrian Dantley was probably the hardest working guy I had met. And if a lot of kids was to follow his pattern, they would be just as good. I mean, without practice, you're not good. And anything you're trying to do, if you're trying to be an orator, you got to read. You're trying to be a doctor, you got to do 4 extra years of college to become a good doctor. So that's the recipe.
That's a good recipe. I like that. Now, let me ask you something about the Capitol Classic. Some of the guys that you play with and some of the guys you play against Darrell Griffith, who went to Louisville, won a national championship, played for the Utah Jazz. You played in the game. Clyde Austin played in the game with you. Hawkeye Whitney played. Who are some of the other teammates you had in that game?
We had Bill Dankos from Good Counsel. Mm-hmm. My good friend, your good friend, who passed away, rest in peace, Chick Lyles, Billy Bryant. We had got Bill Lewis. He was from one of the county schools. I think if that year Jodine Davidson was 32 and 0. Mm-hmm. And we happened to have a problem that year with who was going to coach the team. I can't remember the coach's name, but Jody Davidson.
You all ended up with Mr. Mr. Kernan from Parkdale. He ended up being
Exactly.
the coach.
I think they should have both been, Jody Davis should have been there. And without Jody Davis being there, we lost 3 players that would have made us that much better. James Gregory was 7-foot center at Coolidge High School. Craig Shelton and John Bebe Dorn. Had we would have had them guys on the team, it would not only made us a better team, the guys that started or however they would have mixed it up, it would have been a better lineup with them 3. Hawkeye at one forward, Craig at another, and James Gregory, and whoever they would have started between me, John, and Clyde Austin. That was a good 6. And then you still had Billy Bryant. Bill Dykens was good in his game. We would have had a good team, and it would have been hard for Darrell and them to match up with
Who
Craig and
the U.S. team had? They had Darrell
They
Griffin.
had
Who else?
Darrell Griffin, Bobby Turner, Jim Graziano. They had some good players.
Was David Greenwood on that team?
Exactly.
Okay. UCLA.
Yeah. 16 guy.
Yep. They were stacked. They were stacked, man. But that's good memories, man. I mentioned about you playing in the Urban Coalition, and I can tell you, I remember many a good game you had down at Urban Coalition. Many a Saturday, many a Sunday. Share with us some of those stories about playing over in the summertime at the Urban Coalition. Tell us what that's all about.
Well, it was a highlight for DC area because you had so many guys that had played that this was the highest level, and this was a pro league because the Washington Bullets at the time they put the whole team in the league. That's how good the league was, and by them putting their team in the league, by them trusting that the league was that good, we had players coming from out of town who had to come. The 3 top leagues in any order was LA Summer League, the Rucker League, and the Urban Coalition. And you had players that traveled around the country to play in these leagues because they were street basketball players that were good, college players. You had an abundance of pros that came through. So for me, it was a way to still solicit the fact that I could play at this level. Now, I played with Green Fuel. The first team I played was called Smith Lithograph. And this was a freshman team that I played with some of the Maryland alumni. Tom Owens, Lenny Elmore, John Lucas, Mo Howard, and me and Billy mixed in with them. And then the next season I played with Green Fuel with a guy who was a famous guard here named Ducky Vaughn. Who was played on that team? A guy Arnold, and one of the great shooters from the NIT, Greg Sanders, left-hand guy who played on that team. Larry Spriggs, a former Laker, first player that was drafted by Howard University. Gerald Glover, who also went to Howard and ended up playing a season for Atlanta. So and then after that, I played with the team that I played with for 8-9 years, which was the Chuck Taylor All-Stars. And I mean, you had people putting teams together that was phenomenal. You had the Baltimore Finest, Ernie Graham, Kevin Graham, Muggsy Bogues, David Wingate, the guy that played with the Knicks. I can't think of his name right off. And then you had the Wizards. Truck Robinson was leading the league in rebounds. Phil Chenier, Mike Reardon. You had Melvin Crabhouse, who had Moses Malone, Larry Spriggs, Ducky Vaughn. I mean, it's a list that goes on. And a lot of times people ask me about Barry Farms versus the Urban Coalition. And I don't like to get into a conversation like that because I'm not hating on the guys that are playing now because it's a different game, and all I would have to say is if that league was as good as the Urban Coalition, then the Bullets should be in that league as well. But it's outside. So, but the players, I can't take enough away from them. We had on the Chuck Taylor All-Star, we had Adrian Dantley, John Lucas, Eddie Jordan, Mike Reardon, Phil Chenier, Mike Reardon, 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 Mike Reardon James Jammett Bailey,
Mm-hmm.
the guy from Seton Hall, Andre McLeod. We had
Some some
Chuck
weeks they
Taylor's
had
son.
some weeks they had the Bradley brothers, Dudley and Dudley Bradley and
But Dudley
I forget
played with
John.
no Dudley and his brother played with Melvin.
I thought they played with Chuck.
Nah, because I remember playing against
Okay,
the brother that played at Wyoming. They played with Boston,
Charles.
Charles.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he was phenomenal. I remember one game we was playing, and just out of the blue, he was coming down off the break, and he was a big guy,
Mm-hmm.
and Adrian was going to take a charge on him. He was coming in for one of these hard dunks. So Adrian kind of moved like it got out of the way because it was just one play. So we got down to the locker room at halftime, and Chuck Taylor said, Adrian, you could have took a charge. And Adrian said, Chuck, I was trying to get back to the other end because that was a play I could definitely could do. But we all was in awe of that, how big he was and how he could jump. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
people came to see certain players. He was a highlight. You know, when we didn't play them and maybe we played the first game, I used to stay down there and watch to see him. Dudley Bradley, I played against at Maryland. Great
Mm-hmm.
defensive player. I mean, what's the guy's name from Townsend State that could play? He could jump out the gym. He played at Phoenix.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
can't
I
think of who it
can't
is.
think of his name. He could jump real good. It was just so many players. Penny Hardaway came to play.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there was a great play down there with Greg Jones and Penny Hardaway. He crossed him up, and the gym just went crazy. Um, like Truck Robinson, Larry from Western, Larry,
Larry Wright. Yeah.
you know,
And don't forget about Gus Williams.
Gus Williams, Ray Williams, Ricky Sobers. I mean, it was a game for the people to see. And remember, we still talking about this is almost 40 years ago.
People
So
still
just
talk
think of the
about
players. So that was the top of the line league to be in. I mean, that made people who they were, the people that's still walking around, because people remember the Urban Coalition. I mean, it was like if you got down there to get in the parking lot, then you had a problem with trying to get in the gym.
it.
I mean, it was
Mm-hmm.
more people outside trying to get in than it was the
Mm-hmm.
people inside. It was really a fire hazard, because there were so many people. I mean, John Thompson and Mr. Wiggins put together a league for the ages.
Yeah. It was must see every week. Every week. I simply enjoyed it. I went down there with my father quite often, every Saturday, every Sunday.
Well,
And
they had Friday night games,
yeah, Friday night
6
I
and
would
the
get that.
8.
I would get there some Friday night. I didn't get there a lot of Friday nights, but I got there Saturdays and
This is
Sundays.
how important it was. Saturday mornings, the game was you had a 1 o'clock, you had a 12 o'clock game, it was high school,
Mm-hmm.
1 o'clock and a 3 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, there was nobody on the streets. Everybody was in the parking lot of Dunbar trying
Yep.
to get in or just out there for the atmosphere. When the
Yep.
players were coming out and the players were coming in. I mean, you see Joe Pace walking through the crowd trying to get in. Ernie Graham, his brother Kevin Graham, Muggsy Bowles, was pulling up. Quentin Daly, and then Adrian Daly. Adrian was excuse me for 1 second, John. Excuse me. You had Adrian Daly, who was the leading scorer of the NBA. And
Yep.
people follow him all the way to the door and try to say, "This is my cousin. I'm trying to get in." Adrian would keep walking. I mean, it was something to remember. It's something we talking about now. It's 40 years ago.
I loved it, man. One is I don't Saturday something, but I was down there one week. Ralph Sampson was in the gym, and I happened to be sitting next to Ralph Sampson, and I kept trying to put my foot next to his just to see how big his shoe was, man. Man, he was a big joke. And then, watching you play with Greenfield and Smith Litho, and you were so smooth coming in the gym, on the court, you just did your thing. I just loved it, man. Every week
Well, I
it
mean,
was.
it's just like a fighter. Um, you couldn't beat Sugar Ray in Vegas. You had to knock him out. So coming down Dunbar, and I had all my family, people that I knew, it gave you the butterflies were dead because you had to play.
Yeah.
And then I learned so much from playing with Adrian. The fact that I could score, he could score. I had to learn how to score off of him. You throw it inside the Adrian, the player was guarding me, couldn't go and help. Every now and then somebody thought they could help. He passed it back. I shoot my jump shot. and that's the way they were playing back then. The in and out, you throw it
Yeah.
inside. I mean, Elvin Hayes would get the ball, you go down the double, you leave Phil Chenille. So I mean, it was tough. It was a great league. I can say there's probably two guys that made me really work uh, in the Urban Coalition, and one of them was Mike Reardon. I could
Mhm.
not get away from him. I had to get a pick to get him off me. I know one time Eddie Jordan had told me, he said, Joe, when you pop out, I'm gonna get it to you. I said, well, somebody need to help me to get Mike Reardon off me. I mean, he was strong. He was uh he was a player
Tenacious.
that you had to reckon with. And then the
Yes.
other player was, well, it was two, Muncie Bowes and the guy from Georgetown, Gene Smith.
Gene Smith.
Hey, look, you had 10 seconds back then to get it across. Man, I was always at 9-10 because he was defense for him was his game. And you could not do a whole lot of fancy stuff with him. You had to do a diagonal line to get away from him to try to get across. So I realized between him and Muggsy Bogues, get a pick and then run as far as you can go because these guys and then uh, uh, John Battle.
John Battle.
John
Atlanta
Battle.
Hawks.
What a player that he came down to Urban Coalition and I used to see him play against Michael Jordan a lot and thought that he need to go at him a little more. But then as Mike continued, I said, well, he took away his offense to just try to guard Mike, and he played in the Urban Coalition. I mean, it was an atmosphere, like I say, that cleaned the streets. It was atmosphere that brought people down there, you know.
I remember I started going down there when it was in Gonzaga, and then they moved it on over to Dunbar. And like I said, man, it was a lot of fun. They have recreated the Urban Coalition now. A guy named Ricky Goins is putting it together, doing a wonderful job with it,
Oh, he's doing a
man.
great job. He helped to devise the Capital Classic this year.
Yeah,
Uh,
he's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. 11th grade, you unheard of. There's 12th graders like Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, Moses Malone, Daryl Dawkins, who went pro after 12th grade. I don't know anybody was offered to go pro in 11th grade. I'm a little biased for JoJo Hunter, but I don't know anybody else that had that. Talk to me about that. Talk to us about that.
Well, it was an experience for the ages. I was in class, and Eddie Mize, who was my mentor, also was the disciplinarian teacher at Mackin, and he called me out of my classroom and said, man, guess who's gonna come to practice today? And I said, who? He said, Gene Shue. So I looked at him, I was like, come to practice. So
And
I
tell them
thought it
who
was a
Gene Shue
joke.
is, Joe. Tell them who
Huh?
Gene Shue is. Who is Gene Shue?
Gene Shue was the general manager for the 76ers as well as the coach.
Yep. Yep.
And the Bullets were in town. I mean, the Sixers went in town to play the Washington Bullets. While he was here, he was recruiting as well. And, he came to the gym. So when I went to practice that day, kind of people in school knew about it as well. So when we was in the locker room, I'm walking across the parking lot to go to the gym, there was a lot of people out there, and I went to the gym and he wasn't even there. So as practice, started, Coach Rest told me that we was going to have a visitor. He didn't call his name. He said, so, everybody got to play. You never know who's coming to watch you. And as practice went on, sure enough, he was at the gym. So he came for maybe 4 or 5 practices. They played the Washington Bullets that night. And this started the interest that they had in me. And from that, I became just a little bit bigger. I got an interview the week after that with Dan Rather of 60 Minutes with the
Did
Prodigy.
you just say Dan Rather of 60 Minutes?
Dan Rather of 60 Minutes. We had an interview where I walked from the school was on California Street, which was connected to Connecticut Avenue. And me and Dan Rather walked around Connecticut Avenue back to Mackin. And it was on 60 Minutes, a program that, a worldwide program. And they were saying I was a prodigy. which I didn't even know what the meaning of the word was back then, because it was new. Everything was new. So that was phenomenal because after having the interview with Dan Rather, I became a fan of Dan Rather because I wanted to watch and see what else he was going to have on the show. It was just fortunate that I had it. And, things got real exciting then, because I think 2 months had went by and when everybody used to come to the games, one of the writers here, the guy that was in the wheelchair for the Washington Post, his name was Steve Dean. He put an article out, and rest in peace, Steve, because he was a real good friend. He was in the wheelchair. He was a DeMatha fan at first because he used to be at all the games. Back then, this is something that is phenomenal. Okay, you had DeMatha was beating everybody in high school. They were the team to beat. You go to college, it was Notre Dame and UCLA. UCLA was winning all the games, and then you went to the pros. It was the Celtics, and the Lakers, and these were some of the teams that we continue to see over and over. I mean, I think we beat the Mafia twice in the 4 years I was there. We beat them at the Alhambra tournament, and we beat them in the game. They had already clinched the title, and we beat Hawkeye and them in one game, But what a team! If you play good against the Mafia as a team or individual, that was an accolade, because the pressure was on you, and these games were big. But getting back to the Philadelphia thing, it kind of took me to a level with the advertisement of me going to the pros. I mean, Steve Dean did an article said Hunter versus the pros. He's one step away from, everybody thought I was going. John Thompson didn't recruit me. Comment that John Thompson said, ain't no sense of recruiting him. He's going to the league. So just coming from him without saying this kid should go to school. So I guess with my team helping me to score all these points, we were winning. We always played good against the Mafia. I guess it was an eye-opener to say, hey, this kid could possibly go to the league. Now I look at the team that I could have been on. Wow, I should have left. But my road was still good because I got to meet some people that, playing in CBA. It was great. I got to go overseas, and that was great. But I could have been on a team with the ABA was folding, and George McGinnis was an addition to the Philadelphia. Charles Jones brother, the Jones brothers, Steve Mix, George McGinnis,
good doctor,
Doug
good
Collins.
doctor.
I was going to name Doc last. You got to give some of the other players some publicity because he was the team. And
was Lloyd Free on that team?
Yeah, Lloyd Free was on. He was
yep.
on the team.
World be free.
And Henry Bibby. It was Henry
yep.
Bibby and Doug Collins in the backcourt. Now, when I look at it now, as a total adult, because I was 17, 18 years old, these guys were men. I think my mom was saying, you don't need to go right now. We don't need this and need that, but we did. I guess she thought, hey, these guys are at another level. But I could have got there and I could have learned. But I mean, it still turned out good. David Falk would have been my agent, and this is something that a lot of people don't know. If you're not first round, David Falk is not even going to talk to you. Did you know that? If you look at his list of players, everybody was in the first round.
Yep.
So you really don't need an agent in the second and third round because the guy in the first round is going to get a guaranteed deal. So these factors were not known to me as it is today, because he's probably is one of the biggest agents of all time in the league. And most of his players came from Georgetown, North Carolina, and Maryland. And if you name all the players that from them three schools, he was the agent. So and I still talk to him to this day. He has a book out that he wrote about himself. And when I'd seen him, I think a year or so ago, he wrote in the book one of the first would have been one of the first one and done. You know, and I think that year, I think I'm saying it right. I think it was Bill Willoughby, Daryl Dawkins, because um, Spencer Haywood was a hardship case.
Right.
That was the beginning of the player had to leave financial reasons.
Right.
And, you know, that was called a hardship case.
Mm-hmm.
But the guys who were before me that went straight out of high school were big guys. I would have been the first guard way before Kobe and way before LeBron and some of the players that went straight out of high school. And I would have been on a on a good team. This is one of the things that made it seem real for me that I got invited to a Sixers and a Wizards game, and they met at University of Maryland. So I came in. This was something that David Falk had set up, and I got to meet George McGinnis. I shook Dr. J's hand, and he kind of, good luck. But I sit down and talk to George McGinnis. He said, "Man, make sure you get, a contract that helps you to continue to get your education." And I was in awe because these guys were so big, and I'm saying, "Well, damn, is this real?" I said, because I was in awe at the practice, just to say, it's possible I could join these guys. But it was a big decision. And it made me, at that time, a household name. I remember after the Dan Rather talk, I used to walk from a northeast area in Washington down to what you call Florida Avenue to catch the bus. Everybody used to catch the bus to go because it took you straight to Connecticut Avenue. And when I got on the bus, everybody was on the bus wanting autographs and people wanted to talk and see if I was going. And this is for one day. And I thought I was somebody for one day. I mean, it was just phenomenal that just that article that Gene Shue had came to the practice, everybody thought I was going. I ended up not being able to get on the bus no more. I used to get a ride from Mr. Myers just to make sure that, I stayed level-headed to continue. But it was a great opportunity. It's just sad that we haven't produced more players, not because of me, but players like Adrian and Kenny Carr and some of the guys that's from Washington. I just think my story, Adrian's story, Eddie Jordan, Durant is from Maryland, but he's still a product of, I would say, Washington, because it's all in the area, because that's why we call it the DMV now. But we should have more players in the league. We should be back at the number where we were as what you call the bedroom of basketball. I mean, at one time it was LA, New York, and DC where you were getting most of the players from. And now you got other places, Chicago, that's producing a lot of players. We have kind of declined a little bit, but I just hope that it changes, because there's an opportunity to get a free education as well as, to see the world and meet good people like yourself, John.
So you decided you weren't going to go to Philadelphia. You were going to go to college. You decided to go to College Park and be a Terp, play for Maryland. You had over 200, 250 letters. How'd you end up in Maryland?
Well, just coming from me, Eddie Mize, who was my mentor, was great friends with Will Jones. Will Jones
was the assistant coach, right?
Assistant coach at Maryland. He was at Parkdale. He had a guy who played on it, the Capital Classes. His name was Scott. I can't think of his last name. He was a guard that played with us in the Capital Class.
Okay.
But I knew Will, and Will took the opportunity to take the job, and his first assignment was, could you possibly get JoJo to come to Maryland? So they put a package together to say, hey, man, you could be a household name. But by me being just 17, 18 years old, a household name, then I was already that. But I chose Maryland over some schools before taking a chance to go to the league. Um, I kind of, it was a mistake, but it wasn't a mistake, because here's the difference. After I played my first season at Maryland, it was a disgruntled year. And I went back to talk to David Falk, and he said, you might go third round right now, which meaning that I wouldn't be talking to him. Had I would have went when I had an opportunity, I would have been the first round pick for the 76ers. So my plight in basketball still was on the verge of me, trying to get in. I had to prove myself just a little bit more. I undermined the situation that I was in, but it still turned out to have a great career, and I'm still friends with David Falk. Rest in peace, Lefty. I just think that a great recruiter. And I think that we had an abundance of players at the school. And I've coached some teams, and it's very tough. I tip my hat off to guys like Calipari and these guys that have full benches. North Carolina and UNLV, which is one of the teams that a lot of people miss, because when I left, when I told Lefty that I was going to transfer, it was after a game we had played UNLV, and they played just like I wanted to play. It was like, run and gun, but it was also an organized run and gun. And a lot of people, this is my way to get to Denver. I go to Vegas in the summertime because I was going to choose Las Vegas the second time around. This was my sophomore year. I go to Vegas to take on Talks, his situation. He said, man, you come out here and play. Sidney Green took a car from UNLV and went back to Detroit. He wrecked the car. They found out that the car was from an alumni, okay? I'm living in the Flamingo Hotel, which is called the Bellagio. And guess who I'm working for? I'm working for Dean Martin, who ran the facility. And I was making, at that time, $1,500 just to flip the lights for the showgirls. I'm up top, red, green, white, and I got $1,500. I've lived in the Flamingo for that summer free. So this is how I was going to pay for the scholarship, because Sidney Green forced the NCAA to penalize him. That scholarship would have been mine. So I would have went to UNLV. And I came home that summer. I told Talk when I finished summer school, I was going to come back home and make my decision. I get on the flight. I'm flying first class. I walked past him at first, and then I got to go to the bathroom, and I turn around. Larry Brown is there. Larry Brown was the head coach of the Denver Nuggets. And he get to talking and telling me, well, why you don't go to North Carolina? Because he was a North Carolina player. And Lefty wouldn't sign what they call the interstate agreement for me to go to Maryland. Most coaches, they're going to trade you away where they don't have to play against you. Now, if I went to Maryland, I mean, when I was at Maryland, I played against Phil Ford and Walter Davis. And if I would have went to North Carolina, I would have been in the backcourt, I think, with Al Wood, who was a great player. So he said, no, we're not going to North Carolina, because he didn't want me in the ACC to play against me. So I came home, and a coach that was at the Mafford called, rest in peace, Terry Truax, told me about Colorado. Man, it's beautiful out there. Well, I thought it was cold. So I flew out there, beautiful country. I got there. Who greeted me? Fatty Taylor, who was the town. Fatty Taylor had a restaurant called the Pier 6. All the players, because of his former days in the ABA, when they folded, he came back to Denver because him and Larry Brown used to play on the Denver Nuggets team in the ABA. So I got to meet, at that time, it was, that whole league was David Thompson. And it was Dr. J, that famous basketball dunk contest. I was there sitting with Fatty Taylor on the front row. And because I had the red shirt the year, but they sold me on the program. They built a new gym that year, which was called the Event Center. The school was like driving from DC to Baltimore. Beautiful town. I had Fatty Taylor bringing me to Denver. I got the scrimmage with them guys out there, Tom Boswell, Charlie Scott, Michael Ray Richardson's from Denver. They had a summer league out there called the Salvation Army. I mean, beautiful town, but
Mhm.
the people that were in the town that was phenomenal was one, Fatty Taylor in Denver. Alvin Gentry was the assistant coach of Colorado, who became the Phoenix coach. He's still in the league now, I think, as an assistant coach, but he was David Thompson's cousin. And I had him as an assistant coach. So I think I was the third player at that time from DC to Denver. We had two other players, Joe Washington from DeMatha and Tony Ellis, also from DeMatha,
Yeah.
by the way of Terry Truax.
Mhm.
And then I came out there. So the part that when you talk about the schools that I would have went to, everybody leaves out UNLV, but a great experience. Uh, for me to live in the Flamingo Hotel for the summertime and work for Dean Martin, I mean that's a highlight for me. He owned the Flamingo Hotel, and that's
Mhm.
called the Bellagio. So I've had some things happen to me all because of basketball, and this is why I go out and speak. This is why I try to let kids know a lot of times that if you make the right decision in the sport, it's gonna pay off for you. And been overseas for 10 years. I played in the CBA. Um, I mean, it is a good time to um, play basketball and get the things that I've been able to get. This is a many year after playing basketball, and I'm still being interviewed. So I mean, it's a great thing, and I made some mistakes later on in life. As far as I was incarcerated at one time, and I did my time. I came out, and now I speak to churches. I run a basketball camp. Um, trying to help kids to make the right decisions off the court. And I try to use my life as an example for some of these kids to help them with their good and bad decisions. I did all that, and now I'm out here trying to use my life to help some kids to say, hey, man, I got a chance to get a scholarship, and I'm not going to, keep going down this road. I need to make a U-turn because JoJo is telling me, this is what can happen. And I'm an example of it, and that's my plight in life right now, trying to be an example to kids that maybe have a lot of uncertainty about things that they shouldn't.
One of the things that I'll say that I find very impressive, I've been able to be present at some of your presentations, some of your speeches. And just like you just did now, you're very open about it. You pull the scab back and you tell the story. And I've seen you touch other youth, other kids' lives and try to help them. And that's not an easy thing to do, Joe. And I give you all the credit in the world for being able to do what you do. You tell the story, you tell, and you use yourself as an example. And you do make a difference, my friend. You do make a difference. And the other thing that's, I'll be honest with you, man. I watched you do your presentations. I've watched you talk for 45 minutes with no index cards, no paper, no nothing in front of you. And you tell the story and you don't repeat a doggone thing. You're still talking. I mean, you do a wonderful job, man. Absolutely wonderful. And I hope you continue to try to help these kids, man. They need
I just think, John, Washington has not changed. I just think that we need to get more mentors like the Eddie Myers and the Bill Butlers. And I would have to say John Thompson as well, because he was a guy who was at St. Anthony's, and he took these guys to a Catholic college, which was Georgetown, and he changed the Southwest area of Washington because now Georgetown is a prominent school. It's a great school to go to, not just because of John Thompson, but just the fact that he showed African Americans, hey, y'all can come to these schools. You just got to
You know,
follow you
you
these.
know the funny thing. You know the funny thing about Coach Thompson and Georgetown.
What?
A lot of people at first thought Georgetown was HBCU.
Yeah. I mean, everybody got their own opinion about John, but
Good guy, man.
there are
Good
some
guy.
guys that didn't, get what they thought they deserved from John Thompson, but
Mm-hmm.
he took the players who probably wouldn't have reached that status
Mm-hmm.
and got them into a league, and the school was on television. I think when I was in high school, it wasn't that many buildings down there, but look at all the NCAAs they went to. Now the school is dominating Georgetown. Georgetown was known for lacrosse.
Mm-hmm.
John
Mm-hmm.
Thompson coming in, now they got a big football thing. But John, North Carolina was the first school that had maybe 10 guys on the team that they could play.
Mm-hmm.
Dean Smith had 10 guys. Now I'm switching gears a little bit that he had on his team. The next person was Tark.
Mm-hmm.
You would think he would, well, why would you get Jackie Robinson and you got Reggie Theus? But Jackie waited till his turn. When
Mm-hmm.
Theus left, it was Jackie Robinson and Robert Smith team.
Mm-hmm.
And they learned from Reggie Theus. Then you look at North Carolina. Al Wood played behind Michael Jordan until Michael left. And then Mike left early.
Mm-hmm.
And they still had 10 players. Somebody got hurt, they could replace him. Okay. Then you go to Maryland. Before I came there, they had a guy who played like David Thompson. And we both know Turk Tillman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it wasn't like he was over recruiting Turk. Well, what it was is that he would rather have me on the team. He would rather have me on the team with Turk than to play against me. So the problem was keeping everybody happy. We had, man, the team that we had in 77, we were bigger than the Knicks. And I remember we had a practice, and Coach Red Auerbach was a good friend with Lefty. He said, you know what the problem is today? He said that we have so many African-American guys that, should be in the league, but giving a guy $1 million is like putting a gun in a guy's hand. So they made it selective in who they would draft and who they would, let in the league versus talent, and that kind of stuck with me because even though you might be in a situation where you got to wait for your turn, a lot of us couldn't wait. We transferred, so I kind of felt bad that when I came in, it kind of put Turk back, but I don't think he played it right because Turk stopped working on his game, because he figured he wasn't going to play, but he was talented. He ended up going to, I want to say East Carolina, but I think Billy went to Western, and Turk led the league. Turk led everybody in scoring that year.
Turk went to Eastern Kentucky. Billy went to Western Kentucky.
Exactly. Now just think of all the guys we had on the team. One of the greatest shooters in this area. If you was trying to help somebody and get back to him, Bryant Maggot. He was sitting on that bench. And I remember this. We playing Virginia. And I was having a bad night. And it was because I was guarding somebody that, took away my offense, Jeff Lamp. He was 6'5", 6'6". And I had to work so hard that, when the games were being played, I had to, I had to play defense because Jeff Lamp was tough. Put Billy in the game. This particular night, he had like 26 points. So the game came down to a last-second shot, and he had been on the bench the whole night. But I knew, and everybody else on the team knew, that if you let Brian set his feet up, it was a bucket. So look, we all sitting on the bench. Lefty didn't know who to put in. So he said, Brian, get on the bicycle. So we got the ball to half court, called timeout. Told Brian to sit down. So they set a play up for Albert to come off of a pick. And Brian Maggot was on the same side of the ball. All he did was back up to the corner. And everybody thought that Albert King was going to get the ball. I was out the game. Billy was out the game. Greg Manning threw the ball to Bryant, and we all was on one knee. I mean, this is my teammate. Even though I wanted to be the person to shoot the ball or be in the game, I knew for a fact from practicing with him. I said, man, if they fall for this and let him get a wide open shot, man, look, when he followed through with the ball, I looked at Billy. Billy looked at Mike Davis, and I said, that's a bucket. And when it went in, he ran straight in the locker room. And I was like, it was one of the greatest decisions that I thought Lefty made. I mean, he had sat on the bench the whole game with a minute to go. He got him ready. Ride the bicycle. He was ready. And I kept saying to myself, I thought he was putting another shooter in. He took me out, took Billy out, Ernie out, and he sank a bucket in the corner, and we beat Virginia. I mean, phenomenal. But these are the experiences that I've had with basketball, and me and Brian are good friends up to date. And every time I see Brian, I think about that shot. And it was just as great for him to make the shot and for me to congratulate him and knowing that if they gave him the chance to get a shot like that, he would sink it. And I'm pretty sure that might have been one of his highlights. And he ended up going to GW to finish up his career, but a great guy.
You bring me to another point. You mentioned how all y'all were cheering for Brian, and you wanted him to make sure, even though y'all were in the game. What do you think are the strengths to make a good teammate? Talk to me about that. What makes a good teammate?
Somebody that want the same thing for them as they want for themselves. But it's the coach's decision to put us in these positions. If you're not with the player, then you're not a part of the team. Because at the end of the day, it's about winning, as well as us being humble enough to accept a loss. When you get to the NBA level, you can't worry about losing last night because we play San Antonio tomorrow. That's the difference in these two games. So I was always energetic of a good play. Now, if I was on the same team, who do you think one of my favorite players was on the Maryland team, even though me and Billy was good friends? My favorite player on the team was Mike Davis.
Big man.
Man, he had a dunk against Tree Rollins that it lighted me over the years. I mean, I had a great appreciation that I was on the team. I was underneath the basket. And they had Tree Rollins, Moose Campbell, and Larry Nance. And Larry Larry Nance was phenomenal. It was big. I remember driving in there on him one time, and I couldn't even see the backboard. And I threw the ball out of bounds, and Lefty used to always say, "That's a turnover, son." I said, "Yeah, I'd rather get the turnover than let them, block the shot." So Mike Davis got a pass. I don't know if it was from Albert or Ernie or somebody, and he power dunked it on and it was on the front page on Tree Rollins, and it was on the front page of Washington Post. I ended up putting it on my board in my room because it was a play that you would normally see somebody else doing it, but I happened to be under the basket, and they both was elbows over the rim, and Mike dunked it. I mean, you know how Magic ran to Kareem and he threw a sky hook? That's the way I was with Mike. Great player, and after that play, I think we became better friends because I appreciate the effort and how he performed, and never good friend. Mike Davis, he's from Florida, got a big man shop down here in Florida. He's doing pretty good.
Joe, as we're bringing this to a close, what do you have to say? What words do you want to share with everyone, the kids playing today? What do you want to share?
That you got to put the work in to become a full player, and that means going to school. That means leaving everything out on the line. That means taking every opportunity and complete it, and then becoming an example to the next person behind you. I don't have any regrets about what happened. Things could have been done different, but I still turned out okay. Whatever you're doing in this life, if you give 110%, then that's all you can do. I think the biggest thing about me now is that the experience of playing with guys like this. It doesn't matter if you become an All-American. It doesn't matter if you get to the NBA. What matters to me most that the players that did reach further than me, if you ask somebody, which what you did in the beginning of the cast, could JoJo play? Saying that from a guy like Adrian, oh yeah, he could play. And I'm an All-American in that right. To say, could Billy Bryant play? Yeah, he could play. To be in that group of people that say they played the game, which is, that's an accomplishment that I take to the grave with me. And if I can be an example to another kid with whatever my experiences was, that's what I wanted it to be. I wanted somebody to take my U-turn and keep straight before they get on that bad path and clean it up. I cleaned it up, and now I'm trying to continue to be an example. That's what I would leave this podcast with. And thank you guys for having me on.
Hey, Joe, it's been my pleasure, my absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to sit and talk with you today. You all heard it from one of the greatest, a DC legend, the one, the only, JoJo Hunter. Thanks for watching us today, and come back and see us real soon. Take care.
Take care.